Our next presentation is titled Party Poopers. The two-party system is destroying American politics. Please welcome Jack Tchilingirian.
In 1995, a young hotel owner named Mike Dickens was preparing for the upcoming Christmas season in Washington. As he stirred up festive excitement among his employees, Congress stirred up chaos at the Capitol. Bill Clinton, the president at the time, was given a Medicare bill that his political adversary, Newt Gingrich, knew he wouldn't sign. As predicted, Clinton vetoed this bill, leading to the first ever government shutdown the United States had experienced, which led to a new era of politics on the basis of no compromise. Initially, citizens looked at this gridlock unconcerned and unfazed, but to their surprise, they were wrong. Hundreds of hotels, restaurants, parks, and other businesses were shut down. Mike had to lay off his 200 employees and close his hotel. Knowing that his employees would go back to their families empty-handed, Mike was left devastated. So parents, imagine getting laid off, to see your kids express a face of disappointment as they look upon an empty tree on Christmas morning. In the corner of your eye, you see unpaid bills stamped with past due and raging red ink. Imagine going through this all because the leaders of the free world failed to pass a bill that would make healthcare more accessible to the people they serve. This is a situation caused by political polarization. Polarization has been a festering issue since the nation's earliest years. It is a tactic used by elected officials. Polarization causes the two parties to counterattack each other. These attacks can cause riots, protesting, and government shutdowns. Although one party might have the upper hand at some point, we Americans truly do not benefit in the long run. Although some argue that the two-party system creates two natural perspectives that lead to compromise, I argue that the two-party system creates polarization, making an unstable, ineffective political platform. Polarization is a direct consequence of the two-party system. It is the main cause of the competitive environment between the two parties. This is most evidently seen through the misinformation and weaponization of social media. The two parties push their supporters to extremist sides, shifting them away from the middle ground. In her book, Lisa Jane Dish states that the two main points of disagreement center around the factors and regulations that have undermined the two-party system: increased polarization and limiting third parties. Voters may also become mistrusting. Citizens may perceive these two parties as either biased or ineffective, which can weaken the overall functioning of democracy. An obvious red flag for this ineffective functioning of a polarized two-party system is government shutdowns. These shutdowns make it tough for lawmakers to discover common ground, and the past constantly shows example for this. For instance, in 2013, the two parties arguing over the Affordable Care Act prompted the government to shut down for 16 days. Another example was in 2018 to 2019, marking it the longest government shutdown in the US history. It revolved around the funding for a border wall proposed by President Donald Trump. With the White House and Congress at a disagreement, workers like Mike endure financial hardship, facing delayed paychecks or even layoffs. Most people grow up with a certain view on the system that they don't even try to see what the other side says on things. This is the biggest factor in polarization and government shutdowns. The Founding Fathers also foresaw these issues. Though they created the foundation for the US government, George Washington, along with James Madison and John Adams, had doubts about creating American political parties. Washington knew there would be division within the government. In his farewell address, Washington states, "The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries have perpetuated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism." In other words, Washington is saying that the two parties are creating a back and forth revenge. The want for power by the parties replaced their overall interests in overseeing the needs of the people rather than working towards the common good. Now, some might argue that conflict between the two parties is necessary for the governance of the US. But what if you have too much conflict? Thomas Jefferson said, "Difference of opinion leads to inquiry, and inquiry to truth." But I argue that this concept is no longer valid due to the false choices being brought upon us in our current environment. Difference of opinion is no longer an opportunity to learn, but an excuse to attack and defend. In her book, Uncivil Agreements, Liliana Mason states that polarization has become more of an issue in the past decade, leading to 10 different government shutdowns due to the conflict between the two parties. With Democrats and Republicans always wanting majority vote, hinder compromise. So what does this mean for us? We can see with the story of Mike and millions of other Americans how this negatively affects us. The two parties have gone too far in their own interests. The story of Mike Dickens and the devastating consequences of the 1995 government shutdown vividly illustrate the real-life impacts of political polarization and government shutdowns. So is it just for us Americans to bear the burdens of the two parties' failure to cooperate? Furthermore, do you see the irony of America's leaders prioritizing their red or blue agendas over the well-being of the people they serve? As we slowly grow and expand our political platform, we need to be aware and support the movements that help with political cooperation. Only then will we be able to fulfill the promises of our founding fathers and have a greater future for coming generations, a true democracy that will listen to the needs of the people. As Congressman Mike Garcia once said, "We should not be split apart, but together as one team." That is being an American. Thank you.